It was a sunny afternoon on Steven Seagal's sprawling ranch, where he often liked to meditate shirtless while basking in his own legend. The birds chirped, the breeze whispered through the trees, and somewhere nearby, a single bee buzzed ominously. Stephen, lying on a yoga mat in his silk kimono pants, closed his eyes and murmured, "I am one with nature." But nature wasn't one with him. Out of nowhere, the bee struck with the precision of an assassin, its target, Steven Seagal's most sensitive area. "Yeah!" Stephen roared, leaping to his feet with the grace of a wounded buffalo. He clutched his groin and stumbled around the yard, eyes wide with both fury and disbelief. The bee, having completed its mission, buzzed away smugly, the declaration of war. This is unacceptable," Stephen growled, his voice trembling with rage. "No one assaults Steven Seagal and lives to tell the tale, not even a bee." He limped into his house and immediately began gathering supplies, a pair of aviator sunglasses, a black bandana, and a jar of honey for bait. He also grabbed his katana for good measure because, as he reasoned, you never know when things might escalate. Stephen stood in front of the mirror, tying the bandana around his head. "This isn't just about me," he muttered to his reflection. "This is about sending a message to every bee on this planet." Stephen tracked the offending bee to a hive nestled high in a tree at the edge of his property. The buzzing from the hive sounded like a menacing chorus, and Stephen interpreted it as a challenge. "You think you can hide from me?" he said, squinting at the hive. "Big mistake." Using a ladder he found in his garage, Stephen climbed the tree with surprising speed, fueled by a cocktail of adrenaline, rage, and whatever supplements he was taking that week. When he reached the hive, he paused dramatically, one hand on his katana. "Come out and face me," he bellowed. The fight. At first, nothing happened. Then, as if on cue, a swarm of bees emerged from the hive, buzzing angrily. Stephen smirked. Finally, a worthy opponent. He unleashed a series of martial arts moves that, to an outsider, looked like he was swatting at invisible flies. But to Stephen, each punch and kick was a calculated strike against his airborne foes. The bees, however, were unimpressed. They swarmed him with relentless precision, stinging every exposed part of his body. Stephen yelped and flailed, but refused to retreat. "You call this an attack?" he shouted, slapping at his face. "I've faced worse on movie sets." At one point, he tried to use the katana, swinging wildly at the swarm. Instead, he ended up slicing through the branch he was standing on. With a crack and a yell, Stephen plummeted to the ground, landing in a heap. The bees, satisfied with their victory, returned to the hive. Stephen lay on the ground, covered in welts, his katana stuck in the dirt beside him. His assistant, Karen, arrived moments later, having heard the commotion. "Oh my God, Mr. Seagal, are you okay?" Stephen groaned and sat up slowly, wincing. "They got lucky this time," he muttered. Karen stared at him. "Are you seriously saying you lost a fight to bees?" Stephen glared at her. "I didn't lose. It was a tactical retreat. Besides, I've softened them up for the next encounter." Karen sighed. "You're not going back up there, are you?" Stephen stood, dusted himself off, and adjusted his bandana. "Not today, but mark my words, Karen. The bees may have won the battle, but the war has just begun." For weeks, Stephen trained harder than ever, incorporating bee-dodging drills into his daily routine. He even released a self-defense video titled "Swarm Tactics," fighting back against nature's bullies. Meanwhile, the bees lived on, oblivious to their status as Steven Seagal's sworn nemesis. And though he never returned to that hive, Stephen told anyone who would listen about the time he took on 1,000 bees single-handedly and lived to tell the tale.